Hey everybody, welcome back to Game Devs Play Games, where we play games and talk game design. And we have a little special episode today. We actually have Jan Taaks here today.
Woo!
Say
Hey
hi.
guys. Hey.
He is PR and does. You said you also design as well?
Yeah, game design as well. And basically in a team with like 3 guys, you have to do a bit of everything.
For Battle Brothers, which we are playing right now, and we had a special episode on it before, and I wasn't satisfied with that, so I actually contacted the guys, and they were nice enough to grace us with their presence. So
Yeah, happy
thank you.
to have me. Yeah, great.
All right, so Jen, go ahead and I don't know, just how would you go ahead and describe Battle Brothers? Because by the time this video releases, it will be your launch day officially.
Yeah, we're releasing on the 24th, and at that point we have put more like 5 years into the game, more or less. So the first 3 years we worked like on the side of we had like regular jobs and working on the weekends and so on, until at some point our girlfriends and wives said it's enough. And at that point, the game was developed far enough that we were able to put it on early access. And it was quite successful in the beginning. So we were able to quit our jobs and work full time for like 2 years now. And that's where we're at. So the basic inspiration is from XCOM, the original XCOM from the 90s. And we thought about like why nobody put that into a fantasy setting, you know? So that's the very basic idea that we started out with.
That's, now that you mentioned that, it seems so obvious. Oh, good job.
Damn
shooting your
it.
own guy.
You should trust your own guy in the back.
He had it coming. Probably.
Okay.
That's actually really cool, though. I was a huge fan of the original XCOM series. I haven't played it a lot, but I can see that pretty strongly now. And there's a lot of that like sense of trying to keep your guys alive, because if they're around long enough, you kind of grow attached to some characters.
Oh, yeah.
And XCOM was great at that too, where you're just like, I have to do everything to keep this one person alive. And
Yeah,
Battle
and then
Brothers
some guy came
follows
out of a
that.
closet and shot him in the face, right? Yeah, we love the old XCOM. It's the original working title of our game was Terror from the Keep, so it is a spoof of Terror from the Deep. But I think Battle Brothers works a bit better.
Yeah, agreed. So you had streamed some. Was it you that was actually streaming those videos earlier of your gameplay?
Yeah, that's me as well. I'm doing like the small Let's Play series from time to time, and just uploaded some tutorial videos or combat and world map tutorial, and I found it to be quite entertaining for myself as well.
Yeah, because when I watched you play, I was like, he really cares about these guys. He's like, every time you're like, look at him, he made it through. Like, you get really attached to them.
Yeah, they can backfire though. That when you meet some werewolves early on or so, then you can really lose a lot of guys.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, but that's from the old original XCOM as well. Like the idea of permadeath, it's not that common in today's games, I think, and it was a problem for the new XCOM as well, because at some point it was not feasible to lose a guy there. You know, you had like when you had like a max level guy, it was really strange to lose one of the guys in the new XCOM, and we tried to alleviate that a bit by adding like a training hall where you can train your guys later on, or you can hire guys with levels already. So with permadeath, that's always a big issue to replace losses.
Gotcha. So we want to talk about, like, start off with your alpha versions into your betas and like your early access.
Yeah, what were some of the earlier iterations of the game like compared to where it is today?
Yeah, well, the very first versions, it was really we don't really like to show those screenshots because we had like full body figures, and everybody goes like, give us the legs back. And the thing is, like, we had fully animated complete figures, and the problem with that was there was no way we could pull that off with one guy on the art department. So we had to do this stylized bust, these cut off people, just to keep our workload in check. So it's basically from our constraint of resources. But I think in the end it turned out really well. But in the very early stages, you would have like those full body figures. That's like one of the main differences to the early builds.
I'm actually glad you say that. When we did the video earlier, we talked about how you did the bus. I'm like, well, you saved a lot on the animation department.
Yeah.
I mean, if we didn't do that, there would be no Battle Brothers today. It's just wouldn't have been possible at all. So secondly, I think there's no single asset in the game that hasn't been redone by Paul, my brother, who's doing all the artworks. So every world map tile, every character, every item has been painted twice by him, because over like those 5 years, he improved so much with his art that at some point we said, oh no, this looks like crap. We have to redo this. So a lot of time went into that as well, but still less than if we had animations and full body characters. So we're really happy with how the quality of the artwork turned out in the end.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful. I love how stylized it is.
Yeah, I agree too. I actually had a lot to say about how the art style works really well for the overall strategic UI design of the game too, because the way that it's set up, you don't get a lot of overlapping. You really get to see the entire game field, and the art reads really clearly, which I thought was pretty awesome. You don't get it was a lot of good compromises on the art side that worked really well with the design, and you don't get that in a lot of strategy games.
Yeah, I think one of the main merits is that you with the cut off characters, that you have really big faces and heads, so you can really see their facial features, and you can see their beat up armor and all those details. Because if you had like 3D models, you would have to make them smaller, and they are moving and so on, and then all those details will get lost at some point. So you always have to look for the positive aspects of that.
That is definitely playing into his strength. Being able to see how your characters are doing based off of the marks on their faces and everything is one of the things that sets Battle Brothers apart. Like, you really feel for them.
It gives it a lot of character too, honestly.
Yeah.
That was my first reaction when I saw in our little series we did before this. Anytime they took a wound and they'd get bloodied up, it was just like, whoa! Oh, that is such a not happy wound to have.
How do you come back from that?
Yeah, that was very important for us. I mean, we had to substitute the missing animations a bit and to give feedback on what's happening. It's like, I personally always play without the health bars shown. So because just given how beat up they look, how much blood is on the ground and so on, you can really read pretty clearly how close to death a guy is. And that was very important, and also to show every bit of items or clothing or whatever on the character. So if you find, I really didn't, when I play an RPG or something and I find an awesome armor, I want to see that on my character. And many games really do not do that. Sometimes you will not see the actual armor that you have found, or it will look different or so on, but we really wanted to have the exact same thing in the tactical combat.
That's definitely really prominent in the game too. I imagine that ended up being a lot of work though.
Yeah, it was, but it was one of our things that we were able to pull off because we cut the animations, so that freed up a lot of the resources. And also my brother really loves to paint all this medieval attire and all the weapons. So we're a bit of a like medieval fantasy nuts, basically.
Oh no, that actually shows too. One of the things that immediately stuck out to me about the game is it is clearly it is obvious how knowledgeable you actually are when it comes to the era and the weaponry used. Pick up that pitchfork, please.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really handy. When I first saw a bill hook in the game, I was like, oh, they have a bill hook, and like I got really excited over that because that is an oversought weapon that changed warfare for a very long time. We tried to give like as much variety as possible without getting into too late medieval, because we don't really have plate armor and but we have warhammers, so it's a I don't know, it's some sort of smooth transition or so, but the base game is pretty much early medieval times.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking like what, like easily 700 years of weapon technology that you have to go through. So you had a good gap of time to work with, luckily.
Yeah, it somehow ended up matching the player progression in the game. So you would start out with, I don't know, spears and shields mainly, and in the late game, people would have heavy armor and warhammers. So that somehow mirrors the actual historical weapon progression.
Pitchfork in the back. Pitchfork.
Oh, I see.
Pitchfork in the back. Pitchfork in the back.
Whoa, I can move that to storage? I'm learning
For
things on
everybody who's
custom.
watching right now, I was telling Jan, I was like, well, just so you know, Chris has barely played the game, so I'm probably going to be looking at him like, what are you doing?
From time to time, yell at him.
So, Battle Brothers, what engine was it built in?
We actually made our own engine. It's mainly based on JavaScript and C++. So it's completely custom made, and that actually took us a long time in the beginning to get it set up. But it also gave us like maximum freedom for what we wanted to do. So if we had a new feature in mind, then we could easily implement it because everything in the engine was made by ourselves basically.
Were there any particular moments in the development where that proved to be very useful?
Yeah. It's always like constantly with all the small things that we wanted to implement that we never had a point where it's like, okay, doesn't work in the engine. So that was never a big problem for us. But if you have like more established engines, like, I don't know, Unity, and not really it comes to mind or so, you have some constraints that you have to work with. But there's not one single thing that I could point out right now.
That's fair. I guess then maybe the follow-up to that would be, was it worth it to build a custom engine? Like, would you guys do that again on a future game?
No. No, probably not. But it's mainly because in the next game I don't want to promise it, but we will probably go with 3D graphics or the 2.5D style graphics. Mm-hmm. But with more advanced graphics, you will need a more advanced engine. So this works fine for our engine, for this 2D style. But I think if you want to move to more elaborate graphics, then you would have to use an established engine, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it would be just too much work and also it's very difficult to port it because with established engines, sometimes it's really easy to get it to Mac and Linux and so on.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And is this planned just for PC only, or are you guys porting it to Mac and Linux also?
Yeah, right now it's PC only. We wanted to port it to Mac and Linux, but it's making a game is always like a decision about not mainly what to put in, but what to leave out. And you're constantly deciding on what you are leaving out of the game. And so at some point we really had to push that back for now. So it won't be in the initial release. And I cannot really promise the Linux and Mac versions right now.
Oh, it takes a lot of... It's a commitment to...
Yeah. We wanted to focus on having like a really good game as a basis because this is our first game and we don't have a name yet and all that. So we really want to make sure that the base game is as good as we can make it.
Yeah, I mean that was what I was about to ask. So this is your first game for the group? Have any of you worked on a game prior to this?
Yeah, I haven't, but my brother has been working for a big Hamburg-based gaming company for 5 years as a concept artist. So, but originally he's a geologist and I'm an economist, so we're not really, we didn't study it. But Christoph, our programmer, he actually learned how to program, so and he made a couple of smaller games, but nothing as big as this. So yeah, this is basically our first thing that we're doing.
So okay, was just side question. You being an economist, has that helped at all?
Yeah, a little. I'm doing all the bookkeeping and all the taxes and the legal stuff, and there was a couple of things that I can take from my studies, and also I did most of the numbers in the game, and having a basic understanding of statistics is really important for that. Like that, we have a table where we have the expected damage of weapons, so and it's quite a complicated formula. And there you can compare weapons that you are designing. So yeah, it helped. It helped a little. It didn't help for the economy because there isn't really an economy in the game. And when we introduced trading goods into the game, some guy on the forums asked, "Yeah, you should hire an economist so he can counsel you on how to make a proper economy." And it's like, okay, yeah, why not? That's
awesome.
what game companies usually do, right? Yeah.
Well, I do applaud you. The system for your game involving damage, hit chance, and everything like that is so smooth and really makes the game what it is. So I want to congratulate you from another system designer. It's awesome.
But it's so much trial and error as well. So because we have been working on this in early access for like 2 years with the feedback from the people. That helped so much, and that at the beginning, the game was so insanely unbalanced. There were so really big exploits in the game and so on. So without the people actually testing it, and that's only possible for a small company as ours within early access, that helped us so much. I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, what was the process like for balancing the game? Was there a lot of playtesting involved, or was it sort of like kind of make an iteration, get a bunch of people getting their hands on it and seeing how they break the game and then iterating it from there?
Yeah, well, like that. So we would test internally with a couple of beta testers, who are most of them are recruited from the community, who are really dedicated guys. And when they didn't find any big mess ups, then we would push it to like a public beta branch where people could opt in. And those could then test it out, and it was people are pretty fast with finding with breaking the system actually. So if there's like after 2 days, there's in the forums you can read, this is a completely overpowered combination, and then you can take a look at that and try to work around it or find a solution.
Well, so speaking of which, what any fun moments in which your testers were able to break the game that surprised you?
At first we redid our whole skill system. So at first we had like 3 skill trees where it's like offense, defense, and utility, and you had like a lot of constraint with it. And there was one perk that was called Perfect Focus, and that would allow you to do actions without using action points, so just fatigue. And then there was another perk, Rally it was called, that lowered the fatigue of everybody in a radius. And with a combination of these two, you were able to basically spam like 10 arrows in one round or so. And they got like completely insane machine gun fire. But we didn't realize that before because we were just looking at the individual perks and we're not looking at the combinations properly. And then something like that can happen there.
Oh yeah, unexpected combinations I find are a quicker way to break a game than any ability by itself.
Yeah, but in the end we ended up with redoing the whole thing, and now we have a completely open tree, so no more restrictions. You can pick any perk with any guy. But it works a lot better now. But this is, of course, also due to the experience that we have gained.
Mm-hmm. So side question a little bit. When we reached out to you, we were debating on whether you wanted to Skype from at your office or from at your home, and you were talking about your office a little bit. What is your office like actually? What's your work environment?
Yeah, our office is really it's like a typical startup in the garage. So we are living as a subtenant in a flat. So it's like just one rented room, and then we're sitting there. It's like in a normal flat. So it's not even a real office. But for us, it's good to have for me personally, it's very important to have a division between where you work and where you live. So I'm a guy, I cannot really focus that well when I'm at home. And I think it's really important to have, especially if you're self-employed like us, you have to divide like your private life and your work a bit, because it tends to really mix into one another.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that too.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the things we've struggled with working remotely.
Yeah, it's really tricky, but yeah, we're happy. It's very cheap and it's very small, but yeah, it's good.
Gotcha.
So do the three of you guys, because it's mostly just the three of you on the team, right?
Yeah, we have a couple of contributors, and like especially our the guys who are making the music, like Dennis and Patrick, who are also based in Hamburg, and they are doing all the music for the game. So it was a really lucky coincidence that we met them, and that they're from Hamburg as well.
Nice.
Speaking of which, what is so we usually only get the view from being specifically from Illinois in America, but what is your game scene like there?
That's a big issue. You just lost one guy, but that was okay. I think it did quite well actually.
For not knowing what I'm doing, I felt like they could have gone way worse.
Definitely, it was good. Got some beer, got some nice sword. Yeah, it's really well done.
Oh, you even got yourself
in
a falchion.
Germany, it's a big problem, and I could talk about that for like 2 hours. But Germany is the biggest European gaming market for consumer-wise, but the production is like almost non-existent in Germany of computer games, and that's so crazy because in Germany, computer games are not really considered to be a business branch that has to be I don't know what's the English word. It has to be taken care of by the government. So they just don't give any help to the gaming industry. Like for example, in Canada or Great Britain, where they're doing a lot to attract gaming companies to help them out, to help them get funded. And in Germany, it's like, I don't know, people still really don't like games, and it's a cultural thing. I'm not really sure about it. And it's not getting supported at all. It's a real shame.
Is there a sort of small independent game developer community around there, or is it just kind of every man for himself?
Yeah, there is some in Hamburg. We have a couple of very dedicated guys who make like a regular meetup every month, and there's like 100 guys there. So there are people trying, and there are some who have success, but it could be so much bigger. It could be a lot bigger. But still, I'm really happy about the guys that we have and that who are like putting all the time and their effort into trying to push the indie game scene in Hamburg.
Absolutely. So switching gears a little bit, wanted to go back to early access because I didn't get to ask everything about it. So you went into your I assume a closed beta into early access. And we talked about the benefits that you got from having, fan-based QA testers. But in general, what has early access brought to the table for you?
I think it's you can very clearly say that without early access, our game wouldn't exist, just simply like that. Because we tried to pitch the game to publishers before we did the early access, and nobody wanted to publish it. And then it was basically the other option would be to take a credit from a bank loan, but we really were against that. It was like my biggest fear that the game doesn't work out, and then I'm sitting there with like thousands of euros of debt and no game. So, and that was like kind of my nightmare. And so we prepared the game as far as we could in our spare time, like 3 years. And then we pushed it to early access, and it helped us finance the game and the development. So that is basically, it wouldn't have been possible without the early access. And I know that a lot of people don't like early access or just straight up say, no, I would never buy an early access game. And I think that's a real shame, because without early access, we wouldn't have been possible. So
that's pretty fair.
So it's like, particularly, that's an interesting question for you guys, because your early access is actually one reason I got into the game in the first place, because when I looked through your reviews for the game was overwhelmingly positive on Steam. And that's a really good sign after when you have 200 plus reviews, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people were saying things like, I've never got an early access game before, but your game actually changed their opinion on early access because you had a fully functional playable game.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest problem of people who go into early access is that they do not communicate right, and doing proper expectation management and community management is, I think, the most important part. People usually are not angry when you're cutting features. If you say, sorry guys, this feature is just too much work or more than we expected, and we have to cut it, then people usually say, well, that's a shame, but still support you. But I don't know. Many tend to just not say anything, or just write a dev blog every 2 months or or just go into hiding. You're getting chased a little bit. And you can do those. Those are just tags. Now the mercenaries, not the mercenaries, the soldiers are coming to help you out.
You can actually, if a soldier runs into a group of brigands, you can join into the fight and just overwhelm them.
That's actually really cool.
It is a really cool
Grab
system.
some loot.
I feel like, I contributed too.
Yeah, it can be quite helpful to, if you have a powerful enemy, you can lure them towards the city, and most of the time some soldiers or militia will come out and help. But yeah, of course they're taking some loot as well. So where were we?
We're just, we talked about your early access just a little bit, and it's good to hear that the revenue really did drive that forward.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I just wanted to add quickly that the expectation management it's not just for indie games, but in general for games. It's I think one of the most important things, and always communicating openly and frequently. I mean, it sounds really easy, but I think most developers don't do it, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's really easy, and you can get the support of your players. So that was just one learning that I wanted to share.
Was there any point where early access sort of became cumbersome, or did it require a lot of upkeep or management because now you had this existing community while you were still making the game?
Yeah, definitely as well. So when you have the community growing, at first we were there's nobody writing in our forums, and we had one post a week. And now we have over a weekend, we have 50 or 60 or 80. And it just reading those already takes a lot of time. And at some point, of course, all that time doesn't go into actually developing the game. So that's something you have to work around and be aware of, that if you and then we come back to the point that I just mentioned, because if you then go into hiding, and then you will have the same problem as before. People will get upset or say they've abandoned the game or whatever. So yes, it does take a lot of resources, and also we get the same 3-4 suggestions for 2 years. And that is get horses in the game or get a castle in the game that you can build up, and we get those every week. You can and at some point you really get a bit tired of that. But still, of course it's new people coming in. They don't really read what has been written before on the forums and so on. But you just have to keep your cool and be patient with it, and accept it like that. But overall, I'm a big fan of early access, so I'm one of the biggest spokespersons for early access, and I think it would be really shame if they in some way cut it or change it or whatever.
Nice. Do you think early access helped build an early community for the game, or was there a lot of work that went into kind of bringing in outreach of the game to other people even before that point?
Yeah, we didn't rely on the early access. We have been writing our developers blog for a year before we did the early access. So it's 1 year where we had, I think every week or every other week, we wrote a lengthy dev blog on the combat system, why we're doing it this way, or on enemies or whatever, and just picked a topic and wrote a 1 page about it and shared that. And for many months nobody cared about it, but at some point a community started growing a bit, and when the early access came around, we already had quite a following, and that made the early access impact so much bigger. So starting to build a community you have to start that very early.
Yeah,
I think the early access is not enough to start building a community.
I think that's really important too. That's something that I think a lot of devs kind of bet on, is that I think they think once it's in an early access, it'll just naturally be found.
and their problems will be solved.
Yeah. Was there ever like a specific turning point, I guess, while you were trying to build a community that, you guys did something and suddenly you got hundreds or thousands of new fans and you're like, whoa, that worked way better than I thought it would have?
Yeah, there was one thing that then when we reworked the world map of the game, in the first iteration of the game, the world map was very basic. It was basically completely placeholder, and then we didn't put forth an update for about 4 months or so, and we completely reworked the world map into what you can see now, with the villages, with the contracts, and all that kind of stuff. And when we published that, we got some support from Valve, who helped us promote the game for a weekend when that update came out, and that was absolutely insane. That weekend, it was like such a high peak in our sales and in our I don't know, how do you call it? Not reputation, but how well you're known. That was really massive. So focusing on a big update in the game and then do some advertising. We did like the Steam marketing round where you can do as a developer, and putting some PR efforts into that update, like writing to YouTubers and say, hey guys, here's a new update and so on. And that worked really well, and that gave us a big following. And then you have these viral effects, like where people see other people play the game on Steam, and then they say, oh, what's this? And then it spreads through word of mouth and so on. And at that point, it really started rolling. So with the world map update.
Gotcha. Changing gears a little bit too. I want to talk about a few of the features in the game.
Yeah.
First off, in this fight, Chris attacks some brigands in a night, which can be useful.
Yes, very good, especially against goblins who have a lot of archers.
Yes. So, how did you come up with certain features like weather or daytime? Or other effects on the battlefield that come from just the men around you?
Well, for every system basically in the game, we thought, how would it be in real life? So we wanted to have a game. I mean, the game is pretty complex and it can be a bit challenging to understand, but we wanted to make it as intuitive as possible. So if you for example, you are fighting at night, so what would happen in real life? You couldn't see very far, you couldn't aim very well, and that's what we modeled in the game. So we don't need any tooltips or anything explaining what happens at night, because you can intuitively understand that you couldn't see as far or shoot as far. And we wanted to do the same for all the systems in the game. Of course, some are really gamey, and you have to have like gamey features, but we always try to mimic real life up to a point where we think of our game more of a simulation than a typical RPG. So it's basically, we wanted to make more like a combat simulation.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, it definitely is more accurate, I think, and realistic than a lot of and I'm glad that you used the word gamey. It's a accurate word, I feel.
I mean, of course, it's a game, but there are some games who are more gamey than others.
So also want to talk about how the writing works for the game, because that's one of the things that sticks out immediately, right? Is that you have a lot of these pre-written texts that happen with random events and when taking up contracts, but there's certain chunks of writing that you've utilized that work well together. And how did you come up with your system for that, and how does it work exactly?
That's what Christoph, our programmer, he came up with that. And I think it all started out with the backgrounds of the character, because characters, we have like 40 backgrounds or 50. And we wanted to have, in a fishing village, of course, you would find like 3 fishing guys, and it would be really boring and stupid if they all had the exact same background. So we started to, okay, how could we get some variations into that fisherman background? And then we started working with text modules that get randomly combined into a backstory. And that was basically how this idea was born. And we started then using it for all the texts in the game, that we have modular pieces like changing out names, changing out locations with placeholders, and then putting a list where the computer grabs the name, and having different combinations of background stories just to mix it up, and turned out to work really well. I mean, it makes translation a bit tricky, and but as right now the game is only in English, so it's no problem. And I think that's a very good thing. And also we have a great writer, Casey is his name. He's an American, and he's doing most of the writing for the game. And I think that was like a really big improvement in the quality of the game.
I'm actually surprised that the writer is American. Like, there is a... Wow, good job on him. The writing is awesome. Very really smooth.
Yeah, I think so too. He really captures that, this Game of Thrones-y style that is, it's really dark. It's a bit, but also a bit humorous, but not so much that it destroys the atmosphere. And he's got like a really good balance between all the things, but it's very serious without being too serious. Oh no. I think you can do it.
He's gonna win. It's gonna be a painful victory.
You must not move when you are close to one guy. You cannot move because then he will get free attacks. So you have to kill that guy with a shield first before you can move out. He's almost done.
Yeah, you're going against people with Kai shields. It's a tough fight this early in the game. While we were talking to you, I saw Chris like attack the brigand camp. I was like, oh no, oh no.
See, this battle's going about what I expected it to be like earlier on. Like, I'm losing half of my team.
Right. Chris's plan here is to wipe out his party by the end of the interview.
But you're doing okay. I think if you can really focus them down now, I think you should attack the other guy. Oh, that was a good hit actually.
Yeah.
So if you get a few lucky hits in on the guy with the kite shield, then you're set.
Okay. So speaking of people getting injured and dying, I want to talk about the injuries that you implemented into the game, because they're a really, really big factor in the game, right? When you attack a guy and there's the potential chance of giving them an injury, it can change the fight.
Yeah, the injury system actually came into the game pretty late. And before that, it was like there was a guy with 100 hit points, and if he was at 1 hit point, he would fight at full effectiveness. And that was combat style. I know, yeah, that was really odd. I mean, it doesn't really fit the game. And then we came up with the injury system, and the injuries are basically status effects that get triggered when you lose a certain threshold of hit points. So we have light and heavy injuries, and they depend on the weapon. So a spear will cause different injuries than a club, and these affect the combat effectiveness. Oh no, and but also they carry over onto the world map, so that you have to heal them, and so it's a very great tool to also interconnect the tactical combat with the world map and with the management aspect of the game. And what I can imagine in the future is a game that works completely without hit points, so it's like only with an injury system. I think we are onto something there, and it could be explored in the future. But more, I really like it.
Yeah, I think it gives this kind of it really adds a lot to the overall I don't know, the meta difficulty to the game.
Yeah.
And encourages players to keep their party rotating, which I think not only adds to the realism, but it gives it that gritty and that kind of epic feel. There are a lot of consequences, and you're living through them all.
Oh yeah.
And just kind of you're building this epic story through everyone's punishment.
Yeah, and then also into that playing is the permanent injuries. So with the people would be upset if you just introduced the injuries, then people would say, oh no, I'm just getting injured, this sucks. But before that, everybody who got downed in combat, and now here you can see the two guys with the red thing around their image, those have been killed in combat but have not been killed, but they just have a permanent injury.
And go under their face there.
Yeah, those two guys. So
the one next to it.
Yeah, so he's got a maimed foot now forever. But he's not dead, so it's basic. So you didn't lose the guy, so that's something to be happy about. A broken elbow joint. I mean, it's nasty, but still.
Just the descriptions too.
Oh yeah, it's like there's like one that's like grazed kidney or something. I was like, oh god.
Yeah, they also add a lot of to the pretty brutal atmosphere of the game and the general the spirit of the game and the times. So like basically those are people with sharp objects trying to hit each other. I mean, of course, that's gonna produce nasty injuries.
Yeah. So what was that? There's one really yes. So you have when you start a game, you have the choice of picking an ending scenario for said game.
Yes.
And the three options are orc invasion, rising of the undead, and then a war between noble houses. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what inspired those, and actually also how did those events trigger?
Well, it's we call it like late game crisis because it's supposed to add another layer to the end game, and it will trigger. It's a combination of your reputation, your power, and the day that you're on. So it somehow adjusts to the state of your crew, but it doesn't totally do it. So if you are just keeping the three guys around and not achieving anything, at some point the orc invasion or whatever you picked will happen nevertheless. So. Just to produce some sort of some sense of urgency or threat to the player. But the main idea was we had this completely open sandbox with no ending, and then we thought about adding a storyline to the game. So at first we had planned out a complete storyline with sort of quests that you had to do one after the other, a bit like in your typical RPG. And then we realized that the main or the best thing about the game is its sandbox mode, and that's actually why people are playing it. So forcing a linear storyline on that would completely be the opposite of what you want in the game. And then we came up with these late game crises that add, when they're happening, they for example with the orc invasion or the greenskin invasion. Lots of greenskins start roaming on the map, and they can actually destroy locations. So you have to defend them, and it will spawn a new set of contracts that you can take on. So they have unique contracts for that case that you have to take on. And if you are doing well in the contract and you keep killing their parties, and then eventually the greenskins will be defeated. And so we have like a system that's completely dynamic, and it doesn't force like this linear thing onto the player, making the game that is all about variety and replayability, like to a linear experience that wouldn't work at all, I think. So that's how we came up with that.
Gotcha. So then there is technically no definitive end to the game?
Yeah, we officially we say after the first late game crisis, the game from our side is ended, and the player is encouraged to retire his company and start a new one, because at some point as a developer you have to we cannot cater for a game that lasts like 300 hours in one session. It's just we cannot create enough content for that, and we cannot balance it until like day 500 or so. And so officially we say this is the end of the game, but the players, if they want, they can keep their company and they can keep playing until day 1000 or whatever. And and then eventually another late game crisis will be triggered, so to keep things interesting.
Gotcha.
I like that, actually. It sort of lets you continue walking around in how awesome your party is.
Yeah, there's some really rare items in the game. We call them named items, and we got like save games from players who is like their complete crew decked out in named items of the according color, and it's completely insane.
Oh yeah, getting your hands on those feels amazing. It doesn't happen often, but when you do, you're like, yes.
Yeah, I really like them. So they add a lot of variety to your company and a sense of achievement as well, because you feel a bit empowered when you find them.
Absolutely. So I mean, since we're near the end here, now this video will be out by the time your game is. What plans do you have for post-release?
So first of all, we will do some usual post-release support, like taking care of all the bugs that will pop up and doing some fixing, some balancing, and so on. Mm-hmm. And then we would really love to work on an expansion for Battle Brothers, but it does depend on the success of the launch. So tomorrow is the day. Will be very exciting to see how the game is actually received and how much resources we will get to keep working on the game. What we would really love to do.
Absolutely. Well,
wait. I have one more question. I have my favorite question. During development, what was the most interesting bug that you guys encountered?
That's a tricky one. There were some really crazy bugs where people would get killed but still be alive. So it would spawn a dead body, and then if you kill the guy again, there would be another dead body. So then there was like one guy lying there 5 times. That would be really odd to see.
Oh, so is that what inspired the undead in the game?
But what's even more funny is that a lot of times we have people reporting features as bugs. And for example, when you have the undead crisis or the undead scourge, every human character in the game that gets killed has a chance to rise as a Wiedergänger, a zombie. So even if you are fighting bandits and you kill them, they can rise again as zombies, and people would report that as a bug. Or we have these undead knights we call fallen heroes, and they have this special ability that usually if you cut the head off a zombie, they won't get back up. But these undead knights have the special ability they can come back with no head, and people will report that as a bug. So but it's a bit tricky to communicate that probably.
Oh, you got to go home to your parents, kids.
Yeah, get out of here, kid.
Get out of here. All right, so I think it's only appropriate. Hit the escape button here, Chris, and then retire.
And then we can see what happens. Oh, that doesn't look too good.
Yeah, it's a pretty good fate, right?
I hope that's not how we look after the release, though.
I don't know how you ended up missing an eye in the end, but you know.
You never
Game
know,
dev, man.
Game dev. Had to sell it for a sandwich.
All right. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. You're awesome, and Battle Brothers is amazing, and I wish you the best of luck.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me. It was really good fun. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Well, for everybody watching, be sure to check out Battle Brothers. It is worth every cent and is fantastic, and you can put many, many hours into it and cry over your fallen comrades in the meantime. It's great. All right. Well, thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll see you around.